This video is part 2 in my series on arrays in WebGL. In part 1, we looked at the basic syntax of arrays. We also looked at uniforms to send array data to the GPU, and wrote some simple code to render a quad with multiple point lights. Part 2 here is actually going to be pretty fun. My main goal here is to show you how to accomplish the same thing we did last time, but using uniform buffer objects. And this time we'll be using spotlights as our examples, since they're more complex and usually take up a lot more data than point lights. But along the way, we're going to slam face first into the worst hardware bugs in WebGL, and I'll talk you through the steps that you can take to avoid these bugs and make sure that your WebGL programs work and display the same on all hardware. If I do things right in this video, I hope that you'll see that coding around these bugs actually makes uniform buffer objects even easier to use, since our data layout rules are about to become a lot simpler. So hang on, it's going to be fun. For this video, I'm going to assume that you already have a working knowledge of uniform buffer objects. If not, I doubt that any of this video will make any sense. If this is your first time looking at them, or if you feel like you need a refresher, I made a uniform buffer object video that should bring you up to speed. Link in the description. However, here's a super high-level overview. Uniform buffer objects are typically composed of three things. First, a uniform block in your shader. Second, a buffer containing data that's specially formatted according to your uniform block, using special layout rules, in our case here, the STD140 rule set. And third, some initialization code that connects the uniform block, and others exactly like it, to that buffer. Okay, so that's how uniform buffer objects work. Let's keep going. Well, we want to use arrays, right? So how about this, an array of uniform blocks? As I mentioned in part 1, it actually is possible to do this, but you probably don't want to, as your first choice anyways. The biggest reason is accessing individual members of this array is surprisingly hard to do. The only valid index for this type of array is not just an integer, it's a constant integer. So this works, and this works. But if your array index value comes into your shader via an attribute or another uniform, or if you're trying to loop through these one by one, you can't. Not directly anyways. Not without resorting to something like this, which is an unrolled array. In this case, it's because for arrays of uniform blocks, dynamic indices like these are forbidden. That's according to the spec. And this isn't some weird quirky one-off. We saw this in part 1, and we're going to be seeing this again in this video, but this constant versus dynamic restriction is a common restriction for arrays that shows up in some really unexpected places. Instead, what we really want is some way to keep this spotlight definition, which is expressive and intuitive, and put an array of them inside the uniform block, like this somehow. Now, of course, spotlight isn't a data type that you'll find in GLSL, but we're actually free to create it ourselves. If you've done any coding in languages like C or C++, then maybe you already know about structs. If not, in GLSL you can think of a struct as being a custom user-defined data type for structured data, and you use it to describe things and say what sort of properties these things have. Sort of like a class or an object prototype, but one that only contains properties, no methods or functions of any kind. For GLSL, there's really not that much more to it than that. It's a custom data type that you create, and once you've declared it, you can use it like any other data type. So, if this was our uniform block for a single spotlight, then this is a struct that you can use to describe that same kind of spotlight. The only difference is that we lost the layout qualifier, since layout qualifiers are only for uniform blocks. And instead of uniform, we used struct. But everything else, it's the same. And now that we have this struct, we can use it as a data type in our uniform block, like this, or as an array like this. So look at that. Now we have a single uniform block that contains an array of our spotlights. Simple, right? And a huge benefit of going this way is that we can access members of this array using any type of integer that we want, constant or dynamic. But now, the data. If you're wondering how we're going to lay out the data for this spotlight struct, in principle, it's easy. It follows all the same STD140 rules that we already know. To add a single struct, you start with a fresh for-float chunk and then just go through each member, one by one, according to STD140, until they've all been added. And for an array of structs, you keep doing that again and again for each of the structs until you're done. And that's it. Do that, and WebGL will know exactly where to find each value in each struct. But that's in theory. In practice, it all depends on the hardware and if OpenGL and WebGL have been correctly implemented on that hardware. Because famously, it's sometimes not. And often it's on hardware that you can't test on personally yourself. So what do you do? Well, if you're targeting specific hardware that you know renders things correctly, then nothing. But if you encounter rendering bugs, or if you don't know what devices will be running your code, it's probably a good idea to start coding things a little defensively. Let me show you how. Right, so I'm going to slowly and methodically step through converting a simple lighting program into one that uses a uniform buffer object containing an array of spotlights. And as we go, I'll show you how the application is rendering on two devices, my MacBook Pro here and my low-range Chinese smartphone. My Mac has an Intel Iris Haswell integrated GPU, and my smartphone has a Qualcomm SoC with an Adreno 610 GPU. One of these is going to have severe issues rendering. Here's our starting point. It's just a single quad with one spotlight, which is hard-coded right now. This is our vertex information, which includes position and normals, enough for two triangles making up our quad. This time the lights can have colors, which are available in this 2x2 texture. It has the colors red, blue, green, and white. Our vertex shader takes in the position and normal, and it sends out the position and normal information as variants. We're sending over a vec3 for the position, so we'll need to extract that value. And in our fragment shader, we take in the position and normal values. This lighting calculation is almost the same as from my earlier Spotlight tutorial. Link is in the description. The only difference here is that now we have light color information, which we're extracting from that 2x2 texture and multiplying that by our brightness calculation. The result is then assigned to our fragment shader output. And the values for our spotlight are at the top of the shader, and you can see how each has a specific effect on the output. Okay, step one. Let's get all of this into a uniform block. We'll keep all the same data types and names. Remember that at this stage, and with the way the block is written, these members can be used exactly the same way as our previous hard-coded value, so we don't need to make any other changes to our shader than just this. Now for the JavaScript. First, you'll notice that I've already created some sample data, enough for 10 lights. This data isn't ready for our uniform buffer because it contains no padding, but let's just ignore that for a second. Also, let's only worry about one light here for now. By the way, this top row of values is exactly the same as the hard-coded values that we had at the beginning, so when we get this working, it should look identical to what we started with and to what we're still seeing right now. Okay, we create the buffer, bind it using bind buffer base. Now that the buffer is bound, we could allocate space on the GPU, but instead, since we already have our data, let's just upload it. And we connect the uniform block to the new buffer using uniform block binding. And remember that the 0 here is really what connects the uniform block to the buffer. You don't have to use 0 here, just make sure that you use the same number here and in bind buffer base. And when we save, things break because our data isn't big enough. Remember, it needs padding. So let's do that next. Let me just split the frame so that we can see both the uniform block and our data. Okay, location is a vec3 and it appears at the beginning of the block, so that's fine where it is. Next is direction. It's also a vec3. There's no room for it after location, and besides, vec3s have to appear at the beginning of a fresh chunk, so we need to add a single piece of padding after location to complete the first chunk. I'll just use an underscore here to represent our padding, and the value that we use doesn't really matter. Okay, direction is a vec3 followed by a float, the inner cone angle. According to STD140, that's fine. A float can appear after a vec3, and that will finish off the second chunk of data. Next is the outer cone angle, also a float, so that's fine at the front of the third chunk. And last, a vec2 texture coordinate. Vec2s can either appear in the very first half or the very last half of a 4-float chunk, and there's no room in the first half. So we need a single piece of padding after the float, and we're done. And it works. We have our single spotlight back again. And when we compare with the smartphone, we see that things are working fine for both. Step 2. Let's move things into a struct now. Create a struct called Spotlight, move over all the properties from the uniform block to the struct. That gives us a sort of Spotlight data type that we can use in the program. Let's add one to our uniform block and call it Spotlight with a lowercase s. Now, before, our uniform block had location, direction, inner cone angle, and so on as members, which we could use directly. But now, our uniform block only has one member, Spotlight. And location, direction, and so on are properties of that member. So we need to change our code a little bit and use the fully qualified names of our Spotlight properties. So we have our struct and a uniform block, and now our lighting code reflects that. Let's make sure everything is working. And yeah, seems to be. Step 3. Now, let's start working on the array of lights. Update the rest of our data so that they're the same as our working light. That data is enough for 10 spotlights. But before we render all 10, let's try an array of just 1. Again, we need to change our shader code to include the array index values. We'll hard code the index at 0 for now. And both devices are still rendering fine, which is great. Step 4. No, wait, hang on a second. Step 3.5. We're going to be looping through these lights, so just for fun, let's see what happens if we don't use an integer literal as our index. Okay, that didn't work. I mean, maybe the position looks right, but everything else is definitely wrong. Weirdly, my smartphone still looks fine. Okay, so maybe there's something wrong with the value of x? No. If we change that to a const int, it's working again. And on the Qualcomm, it's been rendering correctly this whole time. So this here, I know of no reason, according to the spec, that this should ever happen, that changing an index from dynamic to constant should change the way that structs are accessed. This is plain and simple a hardware bug on Apple and Intel hardware, so go figure. And of course, this is a problem for us, because for our lighting calculation, we're going to want to iterate over our Spotlight instances, and now we can't, not easily at least. So let's see what we can do to fix things. Step 4. Let's reconsider our uniform block. A good place to start is by replacing any vec3s with vec4s, since even OpenGL documentation warns that vec3s are buggy on some hardware. And that broke things because we're using this location value as a vec3 here. So let's just use the XYZ components. The program works again, but it's still broken. So location is not the problem. Now try direction. This time remembering to use only the XYZ components in our calculation, and we'll need to change our data, because before we had direction followed by inner cone angle, so a vec3 followed by a float in the same chunk, which was fine back then, but now direction is a vec4, so there's no more room in the chunk. So we need to add a fourth component to the direction chunk. It doesn't matter really what value we use here, so let's just use the underscore again. That means inner cone angle is forced down into the third chunk ahead of outer cone angle. So that means inner cone angle, outer cone angle, and text coordinate all fit into the same single chunk. And when I say still broken, but in a different way. And on the Qualcomm, it's still fine. Okay, last fix. We have to give up on our nice, clean, expressive struct here. We knew that vec3s sometimes cause problems, and now we see that even floats can cause problems. The only thing left that we can count on is vec4s. So that's what we're going to use, vec4s, and only vec4s. So pack everything into vec4s by hand. Now, because the intent of this code is no longer obvious, it's really important to document your components here. The first component, x, is the inner cone angle. The second, y, is the outer cone angle. And the last two, z and w, are the texture coordinates. and update our lighting calculation code. And it looks like it's working again. So finally, step 5. Now that we have dynamic indices finally working, we can do our loop of all 10 spotlights. And look at that. It looks the same on both Intel and Qualcomm. So we're finally done. So what's the lesson here? Well, for simple uniform blocks, ones without arrays or structs, as a general rule, it's probably safe to write things expressively and sensibly, though avoiding vec3s is probably a good idea. But as soon as you've started adding any complexity to your uniform blocks, you should start coding defensively, which means things actually get much simpler, because our STD140 rule set has been reduced to a single line. Only use vec4s and pack everything manually yourself. Now, you don't have to completely give up on having expressive uniform blocks if you don't want. I maybe went a bit too far in this code example. For just a few extra bytes per spotlight, I could have used 2 extra vec2s, one for the cone angles and one for the texture coordinates, and the code might have been much more readable, but that's really a matter of style. That's up to you now. And that's it for arrays. I hope you found this useful. We'll see you again next time.